All right. Back together yet? Nope. On part. Welcome to HMS. You guys probably haven't seen this place in a long time, but it's still here. And then my favorite part right here. Here's my heartbreaker. So anybody that knows about dynos knows that this dyno is a heartbreaker. We call it that because it reads typically lower than people expect. All right, get her fired up here. We got John setting up the ramps. And we'll come over here and we'll turn on some air so we can get the airlift going on it. Oops, forgot one thing. Dyno controller needs power to work right. All right, there we go. And we'll go ahead and lift her up. There we go. All right, we're ready to go. Got her all centered up on the dyno. Now we're going to strap it down. All right, we got the car strapped down on the dyno. John's just grabbing the boost probe so we can get a boost reference signal on it for the dyno.
Pull it off the blow-off valve.
Yeah, typically the best spot to do is off the blow-off valve right there. We'll tee that in. Getting ready to see what this girl will do. We got the wideband in the back for the air-fuel ratio for the dyno, so we know what the air-fuel is at all times, which is extremely important, if not the most important thing while tuning. There's some of the other projects going on here at HMS right now. We got a few cars. A couple of Porsches, WRX, right-hand drive, STI swap RS, H6 twin turbo STI that you guys have probably seen before. All right, so we're setting up the base map here. Basically what we're doing is we're going to go into the map and we're going to take the stock values and we're going to make, I'm going to go make like what I call a base map. So these are going to be known values that I know the car should be close with make it run good enough to do a base pull. So we're going to go and we're going to calibrate the injectors, timing, boost, everything. We're going to keep it extremely safe for the first pull. We do that so that, you know, we can kind of I feel the car out, see what it's capable of, make sure everything's working good, instead of, you know, taking it all the way up on the first hit and having something be wrong and damage the car. So, you know, we'll go into the timing map. So this is the timing map here, and we're just going to recalibrate it a little bit. I'm going to put in a timing map that I know the car should respond pretty well with, and just, you know, be safe for the first couple pulls. And then I'm going to rework this map as I go through and do pulls to make sure everything's good and we have no detonation and everything like that. So go ahead and set this up here and try to make it as smooth as possible. And we're going to make sure everything looks good. Blend and do a bunch of smoothing so that we got that. I'm going to leave the rev limiter there. I'm going to edit the fuel table a little bit here. The air fuel ratio we're going to be targeting today, typically on pump gas with this setup, I like to target 11.5 for my air fuel ratios. This is just a base, so this is not going to be the actual final map, but this is just going to get me close enough to where I can do some pulls and get some logs and start making changes and get the car where it needs to be. Wastegate duty tables, we're going to zero those out because we don't want all the boost right now when we're doing these base pulls to make sure everything's good. We'll go in and we'll set the boost limits. So boost limits there, we'll probably bring those, you know, up a little bit or down depending on how the car reacts. We'll come into the fuel tables, make sure those are good. So injectors, we're going to have to scale those. So basically we have latency, fuel injector scale, we have minimum pulse widths at low RPMs, all that stuff's got to be scaled. So idle, I'm going to scale that up a little bit because the car's got a front mount, so we're going to try to stabilize the idle by bumping it up just 100 RPM or so, which is a little trick I like to do. And we're going to go through and we're going to take care of putting the car into closed loop quicker, or I'm sorry, open loop quicker, so that we have enrichment when we need it when we stomp on the gas. Those are some other things we got to take care of. So I'm going to get this base map going, and then we'll get rolling. All right, we got the map flashed over the car. Now we're going to do the first start on this new map, and we're going to log it and see how it runs. So let's see what we get here. So the main thing we're going to look at after we put a base map on a car, especially with a bunch of modifications, bigger injectors and whatnot, is we're going to look at our fuel trims. So our fuel trims are right here, and we have AF correction number 1, and I need to get also AF learning in there so we can get our long-term fuel trim. Okay, AF correction number 1 is going to be basically real-time, what it's trimming very quickly, and then over time you're going to see AF correction number 1 start to trim a little bit, and so these two guys are going to work together, and this is going to be what immediate fuel corrections are made in a lot quicker amount of time, and this is what's going to be over the long-term overall trim. So you're going to generally want these numbers very low, close to 0 as possible is perfect. I shoot for less than 10%, swing either way. You know, some cars we can get them down to less than 5% either way. It really depends on the setup, but anytime you get over 10%, that's generally where I start to worry and start to try to make changes and see what I can do. You can see here coolant temperature 156, so we're warming up a little bit. Everything looks pretty good so far for the first base map. 6-7% is very acceptable. We do have a check engine light on, so we're going to have to run that code and see what we get. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check that out. So let's disconnect here. We're going to come over to our cob access port, and we're going to go down and scan the codes and see what we got. So let's see here. Alright, so as you can see, we have two codes. I don't like that code, so we have a knock sensor, sensor 1 circuit low, and then the other code looks like a TGV circuit low. That's not good. Something is obviously wrong with the knock sensor and the TGV valve on the left hand side. So now we're gonna have to go shut the car off. We're gonna have to do some diagnosis and see, because the car is not ready for tuning yet with those two issues. So that's part of it. You know, not every car is ready for the dyno and always needs, you know, a little bit of TLC every once in a while. So we're gonna go check that out and see if we can find the problem. All right, so I just want to show you guys real quick. This is a really common problem with these cars that we run into. That TGV code that we're throwing, if you look at the sensor here, you can see that it's actually damaged physically right here. And what happens is that AC bolt that's down there, that 14, a lot of times when people work on them, you'll put an extension and a socket down there to get to it. And when you lean that extension against this sensor, it'll crack it as you break that bolt free. So very common thing we see all the time. Changing this sensor is tricky. So there's actually a way that you can change this and keep it calibrated correctly, because normally you have to buy new TGVs because those are all sold as an assembly. But I'm going to show you guys how to change this sensor here and the trick to do it. So all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull this sensor off. And now if you come in here, when you pull this, if you listen, see, that one didn't even move. So basically, this is spring loaded. Hear that? So that's spring loaded. So the trick is here is you have to get the new sensor on in the correct position. And the hardest part is when you pull this off, you just put the new one on. If it's not zeroed out in the right position with the position of where the valve currently is, it'll code out again. And you'll be like, well, why is it coding out? I just replaced it. So this is our one we have, our replacement. You can see this one here is in good shape. It's not broken, that we can tell anyways. What we're gonna do first is there's a possibility that this TGV is actually in a different position that it's not supposed to be because of the failure. So the other one we pulled off, we didn't hear any noise when we pulled it off from the springing back, which means it's in the zero position. So we're just gonna slide this new one on exactly like the old one came off first. And then what we'll do is we'll key the car on and see if we have a code, and we can also check for voltage to see where the position is. If it's wrong, we'll know by checking the voltage, and we'll have to come back and we'll have to reposition this sensor to get it right. So what we'll do for the time being, we'll just put 1 volt in it. We'll connect it up, and then we're gonna go see now with the logger where it's at.
You see it and you're just like, man, this is the problem with kids.
So if you want to come in here. So what we'll do is we're going to connect to the ECU. And we're going to go into our log here. We're going to see our gauges. We're going to come in and we're going to do the TGV. So voltage left and voltage right. Now here we'll have our voltages. If you look, you see the two voltages, how the left side's 0 and the right side's 0.36. That's not right. So they're supposed to match. They're supposed to be the same. So that tells me, like I was, anticipating, that sensor on that side is in the wrong position right now. And that's why we're getting that voltage like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the sensor and we're going to reposition it. So typically from experience, we'll need to clock it about like this, and then we'll slowly turn it. We have to pull it out just a little to get it past this little nub, but sometimes it'll spring shut on you and you gotta start over, which is a pain. See, like that. So it's tricky, but if you're patient, you can get it. There we go. And we're right on the edge. It's trying to slip right now. Yep. It's kind of a pain. Of course, it's going to be a pain.
It's like the most common name ever, so they call John in the
There we go.
doctor's office. And like,
Get that. Put the one little screw in here. And hopefully our voltage will be where it needs to be so the sensor works correctly and we can tune the car and everything works. Put that in, reconnect it. Now let's go back and see what our voltage is. There we go. So now our voltages match. We have about 0.3 volts on each side. So now what we can do is we'll just reset the ECU and see if the check engine light goes away. And that will tell us that it's working properly. So we'll do this. Turn the key off, cycle the key back on. You can see how they cycled through their voltages as I did that because the TGVs are actually moving. And then we will scan codes again. So we'll come over here to the access port. Let's see if we still got the code for the TGV or not.
oh yeah, you had like probably a weak cell in the battery. I had an XS Max and then I dropped it and I cracked the screen. I have Apple Care on it, but I bought this one back from my friend. This was my
There we go. So the code for the TGV is gone. Now we just have the knock sensor to deal with. So we're going to deal with that next. So one problem down. All right, we got the issues with the car fixed. Now we're going to put the dyno in road mode. So basically, the dyno's set up now, so it's like we're driving the car in the street. We can do whatever gear pulls we want. And we're going to use that to basically check the drivability. We're going to tip into it, see if boost hits what it's supposed to, that kind of stuff, and feel the car out before we do a full pull. So, dyno's set. Should be ready to go here. We're just going to go into our COB software and we're going to get our logs going. You can see our long-term fuel trim here is creeping up a little bit to like 10. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. I'm going to take some fuel out, rescale that, and we'll get that under control. But for right now, we're just going to we're just going to tip into it, make sure the car feels okay and air fuels and all that are good. So go ahead and start our log here. So we're logging. All right, here we go. So now we're just going back through the logs from that little tip in right there. As you can see on the dyno, it was extremely rich. So that's a good thing. We got plenty of fuel. So we're just coming through here. We're going to look at, everything and make sure that everything looks good. Mass airflow voltage, all that stuff. So we're going to go into the map now and we're going to start taking some fuel out and we're going to do another pull until we get the air fuel right. All right, ready for another pull. Picked up a good on that one. So 276 horsepower, 234 torque on that pull. Look at the graph here. Curve looks good. Check our air fuels. So air fuel looks really good. Boost is good. So the blue line is boost, the red line is air fuel. And boost is hitting about, looks like 17.5 psi through most of the range. Air fuels drop down to about 11.1, 11.2, and then lean out and stabilize in the 11.5, 11.4 range, which is pretty much spot on. That's pretty close to what I'm looking for. So I'm really happy with that. And it's making good power. It's looking really good so far. So we'll see if the customer, how far they want to go and if they want to take it any further. So you can see our air fuel trims now are very good. We got them down up there almost near perfect. So I'm really happy with that. I looked over the data logs. Everything looks good. Timing was good. Everything's working perfectly. So customer's happy with where it's at. She just wants to be able to enjoy the car and drive it for a while. She doesn't want to push it to its limit. There is more power left in it for sure. We could turn the boost up more and lean on it more and crack that 300 mark, but she has a couple things she wants to address first on the car, and then she might be bringing it back and having us turn it up later. But for now, she's happy. So we're gonna do one more pull. We'll do an outside view for you guys so you guys can see the car ripping on the dyno, and we'll be done.